I have a story to tell. Once upon a time, the people cared about conservation. And they derived energy from lots of natural goody stuff, and they lived. Yeah.
Right to Governor Brown.
Woohoo!
Governor Brown, call his office and let him know that we are citizens of this great state of California and he needs to stand with us. And ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now! Ban fracking now!
Ban fracking now!
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brenna Norton and I'm the local Los Angeles organizer for Food and Water Watch. Thank you to Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, Baldwin Hills Oil Watch, Frack Free Culver City, Credo Action, and other statewide and national organizations for organizing this educational event and protest today. Thank you for coming out. Today is an historic day, and I'm thrilled to be standing with all of you. Today, thousands of citizens are gathering at 150 events worldwide.
Yeah.
And 150 consumer, environmental, and public health organizations are standing united together as a global movement with a unified message. Our movement is growing, our movement is strong, and we do not accept fracking and its impacts on our water, our air, our health, our property, or our climate. We are calling on governmental officials at all levels to ban fracking now and pursue the development of a renewable, clean energy economy.
Yeah.
The new generation of fracking that has come to California today, it drills deeper and longer. It requires enormous amounts of water and toxic chemicals and known carcinogenic chemicals. It creates much more toxic waste and disposal problems, and it is largely an uncontrolled public health experiment. Fracking throughout the country has caused air contamination, water contamination, and is ultimately contributing to global climate change. And you know what?
What?
The oil and gas industry, you know what it knows?
What does it know?
It has a fracking problem. It has a big fracking problem. We hear them every day in the papers, and what are they saying? They're saying how safe fracking is. Well, here's what I wonder. If fracking is so safe, why are they spending millions of dollars lobbying Congress to get exemptions from our most basic environmental regulations? We're talking about the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. If this practice is so safe, why are they spending billions to get exemptions for this practice? This is outrageous. Outrageous.
Outrageous!
You know what else is outrageous?
What?
That fracking, as you know, fracking can be done for oil or natural gas. And there is this argument that fracking for natural gas can be the bridge to a renewable, clean energy economy. Natural gas is cheap, so cheap that it's taken away investment from renewables. But renewables have proven that they can forge ahead if they have policies to support them. Germany reached a record this year where they had 50% of their midday energy from solar power alone. Texas leads the U.S., yes, Texas, in U.S. installed wind capacity and had days in 2012 where wind was responsible for a quarter of the state's energy. That's just a few examples. So all natural gas has done is allow us to substitute one dirty fuel, coal, for another, natural gas, and prolonging our dependency on fossil fuels. We can't ignore that scientists now say that natural gas is as bad as coal, if not worse, in contributing to global climate change. And we can't ignore the billions that Congress has given to oil and gas companies in subsidies, money that could have gone to renewables, research and development for a clean energy economy.
Yeah.
You know what else we can't ignore? We can't ignore the devastating environmental problems from fracking that are well documented in states from Pennsylvania to Wyoming to Texas, just to name a few. We can't ignore what residents are saying here in Culver City and Baldwin Hills, who are seeing their homes crack and their land sink since the increased drilling. Just like the tobacco industry, the oil and gas industry has memos in their back drawers. The tobacco industry had those memos saying that tobacco was harmful and nicotine addictive. And the oil and gas industry, well, they have those memos too. And you know what they say?
What?
They say there is no safe fracking. They say there is no way to safely do this technology. And they know it. They know it. And that's why they're spending billions and millions lobbying Congress. Any position short of a ban on fracking is hurting the development of a renewable energy economy and energy efficiency. Culver City, right here. Culver City, the first city in California to call the state for a ban on fracking in California. Until proven safe.
Go Culver City!
Go Culver City! The city of Carson followed second, calling on the state to ban fracking until proven safe. And LA City Council has introduced a resolution calling on the state to ban fracking, and they need all of your help to call your LA City Council members to pass that resolution. Vermont, France, and Bulgaria have stopped the process, and there is a moratorium on fracking in the Czech Republic, Romania, in a German state, in New York, and New Jersey. While big oil and gas companies continue their spin campaign and fund academic research to obscure the dangers of fracking and its toxic, polluting process, people around the world are standing up today and saying, no, ban fracking now. With so much at stake, some actions on this International Day of Action have started early. On Thursday, Canada, the Council of Canadians delivered 10,000 petitions to the Canadian Environmental Minister. Later that day, the Quebec Natural Resources Minister signaled she would move to ban fracking in that province. Also on Thursday, 10,000 people gathered in Pennsylvania to protest a major industry conference to call for a halt on fracking. And today, just to give you a flavor of what's happening across the country and world, a dozen actions are planned in New York, where Governor Cuomo appears to be ready to open part of the state to fracking. A series of actions are planned in Ohio, action in Chicago, a rally in Longmont, Colorado, where residents have a measure on the ballot to ban fracking. And here today, Culver City, Los Angeles, there's also a big hike happening at Runyon Canyon, and in San Francisco, Californians are rising up. Fracking is happening completely unregulated in the state of California. In France, there's a big action planned where the Prime Minister has affirmed that they're keeping their ban on fracking. In the Czech Republic, there is a big action plan. In South Africa, where the government recently announced that they want to lift a moratorium on fracking, a major demonstration is taking place outside of the Parliament in Cape Town. This is what you are a part of today. Thank you for coming out. It's tipping point for so many environmental problems. And in order to go up against the most powerful companies in the world, we have to build a movement with the political power to hold our elected officials accountable. Working for a ban on fracking is inspiring activists to do just that, to become strong enough to turn back the tide of greed and self-interest that is destroying our children's future and our planet's future. Together, we're asking for a ban on fracking. Together, we can force our elected officials to have a real, true, renewable energy economy. Please join the movement in California. Stand with the nearly 60,000 Californians that have signed the Food and Water Watch and Credo Action petition, calling on Governor Brown and our elected officials to ban fracking. And join local organizations, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, Baldwin Hills Oil Watch, and Frack Free Culver City to stay involved. Thank you. Joining us as our first speaker today is Culver City Council member Megan Sally-Wells. Thank you, Megan. Thanks, Brenna, and thank you all for coming here. Hello, Culver City. Hello, neighbors from around the oil field and across this region. You know, when people move to Culver City, they come here for the quality of life. The nice neighborhoods, the tree-lined streets, the schools, the parks, the services, the safety that we provide to our community. What they don't realize is that Culver City lives in the shadow of the largest urban oil field in the United States. And that on this largest urban oil field in the United States, fracking is happening. Studies from the EPA, the U.S. Geological Survey, and many other agencies have shown that the process of fracking, the entire process, has been linked to air pollution, water contamination, and earthquakes. And we all know that in the LA Basin, for years, what have we been fighting for? Clean air, clean water, solving the problem of our droughts, and of course, earthquakes. Now, I know this is a group that has a lot of knowledge and a lot of passion, but I'm not sure that everybody knows that on the largest urban oil field in the United States is on an active 7.4 fault line. Now, let that sink in for a minute. Think about how many people live in this area and what damage just a normal earthquake can do. And wonder, how can we let this happen? How can we let this happen?
We can't.
Can't. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
It's not surprising that we're here today. It's not surprising that we're asking for protection for the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the very ground we stand on. What is surprising is the fact that the state of California does not specifically regulate hydraulic fracturing. Are we protected?
No.
Should we be protected?
Yes.
What's worth more? Our lives, our homes, our businesses, our future, or the oil that's in the ground? I wonder. No, I don't wonder, I know. The industry says, trust us. We have the best technology. This is completely safe. There is no problem. Well, tell that to the 11 workers who died in the Gulf with the oil spill. Tell that to the country of Japan after Fukushima. We know that mistakes happen. We know that our lives are fragile and our technology is even more so. And then, if this technology and these, local problems weren't enough, let's take another step back and look at the bigger picture. Climate change, our future. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that in this new millennium, it's time that we ask for technology and the resources that will help us to create energy that doesn't kill us. In fact, we have the technology, we have the knowledge, and many of us want to move in this direction. But, I was at the AQMD at a hearing this week, and there were a lot of industry representatives at the table. And for one of these, I think it was the Western Petroleum Association, something or other, I was really shocked when I looked at their logo.
Their logo said, petroleum, fuel for our future. I think that's the most cynical thing I have ever seen.
Right.
These technologies are from the past. Literally from the past. Fossil fuels are the past.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we know that we can do better. That's why we're here today. Culver City, as Brenna said, was the first California city to ask for a ban on fracking until we've made some regulations that actually protect us. And if we can't enforce them, that's not enough. So I am proud to be part of the city council that passed that ban. But I also know that just as one city with a population of 40,000 is not enough. We need you, we need our neighbors, and we need the country and, let's say, the world to wake up to the future rather than dredging in the past. Thank you.
Next joining us is Lance Simmons, who has been involved in senior levels of public policy making for 36 years. He served as a special assistant Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell. During his years in Pennsylvania, he spent considerable time working with individuals and communities affected by water and air contamination from fracking, and immersed himself in community issues surrounding the development of natural gas in the Marcellus Shale. Welcome, Lance.
For 8 years of my life, I was a special assistant to Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell. And during those years, which are basically from 2002 to 2010, I saw the true impacts, the true consequences of hydraulic fracturing. I have seen personally, I have met personally, I have sat in living rooms with people, I have visited backyards of people who have, yes, windsocks in their backyard to determine whether or not it is okay for their children to go outside to play. This is what you are looking at. I have seen it, and it is not pretty. And if you want to sum this up, sum it up this way. We must put people before profits. People before profits.
People before profits.
What you are looking at is, and I don't want to repeat what has already been said, but essentially what you are looking at is continuing to exploit underneath the surface a finite resource. Now, what does that mean? It means it will go away. And the consequences of continuing to exploit finite resources is insane. It is insane. Tom Friedman, I'm sure many of you have read The World is Flat, hot, and crowded, said you can either have a future that is dedicated to fuels from heaven or fuels from hell. And the fuels from hell all have one thing in common. They're underneath the surface, they are finite, and they all emit greenhouse gases as a consequence of their burning. Fuels from heaven are renewable resources. Solar, wind, they don't emit anything. And they're infinite. That's the future.
Yes.
That's the future. That's the future we must demand for our children. For many of us, we've already screwed up really badly. Collectively, as a generation, when I talk to students all the time, I say, you should be really angry at us. This is our opportunity. This is our chance to put sustainability into action. And sustainability means that you leave the place at least as well off as you found it, if not better. You don't leave it worse. Who would do that to their children? Nobody would. Nobody would, not in their right minds. Nobody that would put people before profits.
Wow.
So, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stories, but take it from me. I have spent over 3 decades in public policy issues. I have seen a lot of things. Pennsylvania has been ground zero for most of this new millennium. You do not want to see in California what happened in Pennsylvania.
What a shame.
Okay? So, continue this effort. Continue this fight. Continue for people over profits. Continue for clean fuels. Continue for fuels from heaven, not from hell.
Thank you, Lance. All right, our second to last speaker today, is Paul Ferrazzi. Paul Ferrazzi is the Executive Director of Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community based here in Los Angeles, who brought the issue of fracking that's happening here on the Inglewood oil field in Los Angeles to light and deserves a big round of applause. Paul Ferrazzi.
This is power. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
I'm here to tell you what you already know. It's a war. It is a war declared by the oil and gas industry on all of us, and common sense. It is a war on cities and towns all across the globe, who today are standing together in actions like this to say, enough is enough, frack off. Clean water and public health and safety come before corporate profits and business plans. Contrary to, I think I drank too much coffee to sing this.
We're with you.
Contrary to Energy in Depth's assertions, we know hydraulic fracturing and extraction processes associated with it have contaminated groundwater and drinking water aquifers. We know toxic air emissions and greenhouse gases increase with its use. We have seen structural damage to homes adjacent to the oil field that may have a historical link to uplift and subsidence attributed to operations in the past. We know hydraulic fracturing is a seismic event capable of inducing and increasing seismic activity. We know that PXP planned to drill 100 new wells in Culver City within 16 years and a total of 500 for the entire field by 2028. The wells to be drilled under Culver City residents include having to drill under the watershed of the Bayona Creek and would be horizontal and possibly hydraulically fractured. The geology under the Inglewood and oil field and Culver City is heavily and complexly faulted. It's not just the Inglewood fault. There are 3 major faults in Culver City and a multitude of faults in under the Inglewood oil field. I ask you, where is the common sense?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been spun. Daily, more and more scientific evidence emerges, as well as clear-thinking legislators coming to the conclusion that hydraulic fracturing is not safe. The onus has to be on the industry to prove otherwise. The precautionary principle, simply put, of do no harm has to be applied to this industrial process before our families, our cities, and our state's resources are put at risk. No one should be willing to accept. And I'd just like to quickly end this by saying that here are some of the things that you can do to support this effort as individuals. Specific to Culver City residents that signed mineral rights leases in 2003 when you were told by landmen that if you didn't sign on now, you were going to be screwed because you weren't going to get any money. And the Culver City was behind it and was supporting it. So for $100 a year, you gave them a 7-year lease on your mineral rights. Well, that was in 2003. So those mineral rights should have been expired or terminated. So if you did sign those leases, you should make sure that you have terminated that lease with PXP. They need a certain number of residences in order to be able to exploit that newly found resource under Culver City before they can move ahead, and or that DOGGR can unitize or pool that oil and or gas under Culver City. So that's a thing local residents here in Culver City can do. Support Culver City Council members or all City Council members' efforts to draft regulations to safeguard residents. Support all petition efforts to ask the governor to ban hydraulic fracturing until proven safe. And organize your churches and your synagogues, your community groups, your neighborhood associations to petition your legislators to support bans or moratoria on hydraulic fracturing. And approve and draft letters supporting efforts for a ban to the governor and legislators with these organizations. Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community has held numerous screenings of both split estate and gas lands, and we continue to offer that to any community group or organization or neighborhood association as a free, benefit of our organization, and or discussions with retired scientists after for Q&As.
Ban fracking now! Ban fracking now!
Give it up for Paul Ferrazzi and Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. Thank you. There's a LA Times article out today about a study about this oil field, which is completely funded by the oil and gas industry. We don't really expect that study to say anything other than, guess what?
It's safe.
It's safe.
And they're trying to make a big deal out of it. Oh, this study's coming out. It's going to show you, how everything works. Nah. When it's funded by the oil and gas industry, it don't prove nothing. So write to the LA Times and make sure people know that this study is fracked. And all right, Geneva Morgan, a resident here in View Park in Greater Baldwin Hills, who's been very involved in the fracking issue. Welcome, Geneva.
Listen, folks, I don't have my speech, but I'm a resident of View Park. I live just a couple of blocks away from the Inglewood oil field. It's very scary. And I just wanted to say that it's affecting us. Sorry, it's affecting us in the worst of ways. It's affecting our water. It's affecting our water, it's affecting our air, it's affecting our property and property values. And so I have these pictures here. I'm not exactly sure. I have these pictures here. This is of the Windsor school that's over on the corner. And they have a blacktop up there. And I went up on the edge of it, on the berm that's on the outside, to take some pictures because I'd heard that there was a sinkhole there. It was like a sinkhole. They just did blacktop. So guess what? They had to do it again because there's this huge rent in the these are sort of dull, but there's this huge section that they were like, oh, there's a hole. So they put a cordon around it and then they filled it. And you know what? In like in 4 months, it's cracking again. Because it's going to continue to crack, and that crack is right in line with what's on the ground there on Overhill. So it's in a straight line. And then these pictures here, this poor resident, their house is actually falling off of its foundation. Oh, no. It's unbelievable. If you hadn't seen it for yourself, it's like, what? It's amazing. You can stick your 2 fingers into these holes that are in their foundation. They've got a garage door, an electric garage door. Right now, it doesn't work anymore because the house is doing this all the way through. And if you stand in front of their house and draw a straight line, it goes all the way through their house, through the vacant field behind it, all the way through Overhill, and then up into the school. And the walking park that's there at Verdun, a third of it fell off. If anybody goes up there that goes walking in the early morning, they cordoned that off for a year because it fell apart. Literally, the whole side of the hillside fell apart and it's all in line. And they're saying, oh, it's coincidental. It's not really us, it's something, it's like there's lots of earthquakes. They're crazy. We never had that before, and all of a sudden it's there. So it's affecting us in a big way. It's affecting our homes, it's affecting our kids, it's affecting, there's cancer clusters down on Angeles Vista where people never had it in their family. We've got to stop this.
What about the kids in the school and their health?
Their health in the school, they have the largest use of inhalers at that school.
Name the school.
It's Windsor Hills Elementary.
Where are they putting the produced water from that fracking?
That is a big question
Yeah,
that
that's a
I've
big
been trying to figure out. Where is the water going? They use 3 million gallons of potable water, stuff that we could be drinking. They put that into the ground and they put supposedly 1%. Oh, we just use 1% of fracking fluid. But what is that fluid? We as American citizens don't get to know what they're doing because they're a corporation and they can hide behind the corporate veil.
Yeah.
At some point, we as Americans need to use the last thing we've got, our voice.
There you go.
Speak up. Stand up. Because we don't have enough money to fight them. But we all know that we cannot live like this anymore. We're not a third world country. God bless those people in third world countries, but that's not us. We're Americans. We need to stand up, use our voice, and use our vote.
Well, we still can.
Well, we still can, honey, because the only thing that we're being fed now by the local news media outlets is just bread and circus.
Yep.
There are more tabloid and more reality shows on that really don't show any reality, and we never get the real story. In order to get the real story, we actually have to go to across the pond to the BBC and to other news outlets to see what's happening in our own backyard.
Oh,
that's
right.
sad. So we've got to stop, and we have to, as citizens, as American citizens, stand up and use our voice and use our vote. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now!
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fracking wells have got to go!
What's going on with all this fracking going on? I think we need some facts to come to light. I know we want our energy, but nothing never comes for free. I think my one.
Protesting. It takes big movements to get this thing passed.
Ban fracking now! Ban fracking now! Ban fracking now!
It has to do with the people, it has to do with the world, it has to do with the environment, it has to do with the animals, it has to do with our backyards, our children, and our health. We're drilling deep into the earth, exposing oil fields in shale layers, and we're causing seismic activity. We're polluting the aquifers, the groundwater, the water table in general. We're polluting the air, and the drilling is causing wells to collapse and the shale beds to fill with oil and water unnaturally, polluting the water and causing seismic activity. With this being such a large area in Los Angeles, it can potentially harm everyone in Los Angeles. It is on a 7.4 fault, and that can cause a cataclysmic impact on everyone and everything in the Los Angeles area.
We have to, as citizens, as American citizens, stand up and use our voice and use our vote. Ban fracking now!
The fracking's going on with all this fracking going on. I think we need some facts to come to light. I know we want our energy, but nothing never comes for free. I think my water's on fire tonight.
So it all goes back to 2005. Bush said gas drills didn't have to comply with the Safe Drinking Water Act before too long. It was frack, baby, frack until the break of dawn.
With the EPA out, it was up to the states, but they didn't have the money to investigate. Said people couldn't prove fracking was to blame. All the while water wells were going up in flames.
Cause it's hard to contain.
Happily ever after is a choice, people.
Fracking is a form of natural gas drilling, an alternative to oil, cause the oil kept spilling, bringing jobs to small towns, so everybody's willing. People turn on the lights and the drillers make a killing.
Water goes into the pipe into the ground. The pressure cranes fishes at 1,000 feet down. The cracks release the gas that powers your town. That well is fracked. Yeah, totally fracked.
But there's more in the water than just H2O. Toxic chemicals help to make the fluid flow. With names like benzene and formaldehyde, you better keep it far away from the water supply.
The drillers say the fishes are a mile below. The groundwater pumped into American homes. But don't tell it to the residents of Subway. That water's fracked. We're talking benzene.